How's it going, Reef Keepers? Figured I would do a little bit of a vloggy thing today. I don't have the energy, I guess, to do another podcast. I went back to back the last couple of days, but I've got some thoughts on stuff that went down earlier today on social media regarding reef keeping, and I figured I would go through it just kind of, while I walked around and showed you guys the tank a little bit. So I don't know if any of you caught it, but Salem Clemens hopped onto Greg Carroll's live stream with O and then that Acro Killer guy, and kind of talked about bacteria a little bit, and then there was an interesting shift in the conversation to the gear side. I'm not generally a Greg Carroll guy. I don't really, seek out those streams unless the subject matter is something that I hear is like, really up my alley, or, somebody who I typically watch, like Salem, like I want to go and see what's said. But the end-ish, I guess like the last quarter of that stream was really interesting because Salem seemed to indicate that ReefBuilders was taking on this grand project regarding auto testers in the reef keeping industry, where they are assembling the auto testing products of all the major companies that test auto test parameters in reef tanks, and they are going to put all of them through their paces and use the ReefBuilder studio as a test ground to basically, with like hard data points that they establish, hard test points that they can basically ascribe value to all of the various auto testers through. They're going to evaluate all of them and offer like a comparison, a compare and contrast, grand write-up on and video to go along with it on all of the auto testers in the industry. That to me is really interesting. One, because ReefBuilders has not typically, since Jake Adams passed, really gotten into gear in a big way like this. And that's something I've said it before, I really miss that about ReefBuilders, that, they haven't deep dived into gear in a, significant way like this in a long time. So like this is I think a hugely beneficial thing, really for everybody, ReefBuilders included, because as I think about it, I'm like, okay, if you listen to my podcast episode regarding ReefBuilders from a couple of weeks ago, I note that ReefBuilders is an interesting entity because they receive sponsorship support from basically all sectors, roughly in equivalence from around the industry. What that means is there's no impetus for them to give one auto tester more, like leeway or go easier on one auto tester than another. There's none of that, hanging over their heads. It's kind of reminds me of like South Park, how South Park gets away with murder in their writing because South Park equally makes fun of everyone. So they basically can do what they want because they're not taking a side. They're, this is a bad example, by the way. I'm not saying like ReefBuilders is not going to like attack anybody. I highly doubt that's how they're going about this. It's less of an attack and more of just an objective. Hey, we're going to create a set of data points that we test all of these products against, is what it sounds like it's going to be. And it got me thinking that like ReefBuilders in this unique way is very well positioned to, if they continue this and let's say they do this with lighting, let's say they do this with flow products, wave makers, skimmers, what have you. I don't know what's all feasible to test. I mean, some of these things would be really hard to do. But if they figured out a way, they kind of make a logical choice for being in the best position to be the most impartial arbiter on gear that you could possibly hope for, right? Because they can access this gear because of their platform and because of their position, not favoring any one entity. And they're so well known and well seen and visible that if they're doing the reporting on it, I mean, you would think that these companies would want to be a part of it. It's interesting to me that Salem mentioned actually that there's a holdout. There's apparently one holdout. They reached out to all the various auto testing companies, a lot of them controller companies, and he indicated that there was one entity that like was refusing thus far to join and have their product be part of this auto testing, array of tests that they put them through. Like, who's the holdout? That's really interesting to me. That one entity, like, I have my suspicions, but I wonder, like, who is the one? O really wanted to know. O was like losing his mind on the live stream. He's like, just say it, just say who it is. And Salem was like, no, we're still figuring it out. Like, it still could happen. I'm not gonna say something like that. But he did indicate that there's somebody who doesn't want to have their product be equally tested against the others. And it kind of creates a metric, right? Like, it's almost like how when somebody pleads the fifth, like, basically everybody assumes they're guilty of something. Like, that kind of, has that vibe to it. Like, at ReefBuilders as like an entity with this kind of reach that is in the most impartial position, really, if you don't want to be a part of this grand examination of auto testers in the reef keeping industry right now that are available to consumers, what are you hiding? Really interesting, right? So I don't know. I've just been kind of thinking about this the last couple hours since I watched the stream. It was a great stream, by the way. In certain parts of it, I thought Greg was kind of a dick, but whatever. Things happen. There's definitely some personal headbutting that goes on in this hobby, and but I thought what Salem had to say was really, really interesting. And yeah, I am really curious to see how that all plays out. So basically, I just wanted to rant at you guys for a while because I'm kind of excited about the notion of this going down. And I wonder what you guys think about the notion of like ReefBuilders being in an arbiter position, like, that examines the state of the hobby, so to speak, in different gear categories periodically. If the auto tester thing goes well, I mean, it's up to them, of course. Like, they're their own team. Maybe they just want to do auto testers. It's just like a one-off interesting thing that they want to do. But it seems to me like it could become like a regular thing. And as we know, BRS was worthless at this because they had ties in the industry, like to Neptune and such, that made it so that clearly there were favored companies. But we're looking at a situation where we have a capable team of people who could very much, put these auto testers through their paces with really good data points that they measure them against, who does not own Neptune Systems or Ecotech Marine or whatever. So we're talking about like, again, like actual, like legitimate data points on products, instead of ones that are swayed because of who's owned by who and where the money is and such. So I want to hear what you think. I'm really interested. All right, guys. Hope you have a good one.